So let's talk about Smite in the abstract, because we had a patch. Notes show the patch will go live on, November. Today is October, like 13th or something. I guess I can look at this right now over here on this calendar. Patch will go live on November 12th is when the patch will be live. We've got a bunch of skins. I'm not going to focus on the skin section. I just want to talk about the other stuff. But, here are skins. Have some RWBY skins that in-game are kind of awkward. Still is cool in-game. That one's cool in-game. That one's cool in-game. Pele's fine. Daji's fine. Cerberus is fine. Apollo's really cool. Isis's thing is cool. All right. Skins and skins and skins and battle pass and skins and not important stuff and cosmetics and cosmetics and cosmetics and bug fixes and mostly not important things. More bug fixes. More bug fixes. Okay. Now into some other stuff here. We actually get down into some changes. These are more like bug fix type things. Notable is Kumbhakarna. This is actually a nerf that they put in like a bug fix section, which is basically Kumbhakarna can now be executed through his ultimate, which is weird that they have it kind of in this like bug fix section. But that's a big deal. So beforehand, if you got executed on Kumba, you would be fine and you would go into your passive. Now you're just going to get eaten alive by, Ao Kuang or Thanatos or whatever. You're just going to die. So that's actually a pretty decent type of nerf to Kumbhakarna. Persephone actually getting nerfed from a bug fix. So they're fixing the fact that it's basically impossible to dodge Persephone's plants in one direction. So if you're facing the plant, if you're facing Persephone's plant and you always dodge right, you're basically going to be fine. But if you dodge left, the game basically, you can't dodge to the left, basically. It always hits you. So that's going to be a significant nerf to Persephone, being able to easily dodge the plants in either direction. So that's pretty important as well. And then we're going to get down into more visual stuff, more cosmetic stuff that doesn't actually matter that much. They're changing streamer mode a little bit. Let me zoom in a little bit. Bam. They're changing streamer mode a little bit, which is kind of nice. That if there's no longer a hide self option. So for anybody that plays Smite, you know that streamers don't actually use streamer mode. The only people that use streamer mode is stream snipers. I wish they would remove it altogether, but this is at least a little bit better. So instead of just being able to hide your own name and see everybody else's, if you want to use streamer mode, you have to hide every single person's name. So at least that's a little bit better. So you can't just hide yourself. So I don't know that you're stream sniping. At least you won't be able to see our names either. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, into some of the first actual change type stuff going into the next patch. Next patch would normally be a elo/ranked reset. That's what all this big text is basically talking about. Long story short, they're not resetting your MMR. They're just resetting your rank. So ranked resets should be as normal. But whatever your MMR is at the end of the split is going to be your MMR going into the next split. So if you have 1800 MMR, you're going to have 1800 MMR after the patch. It's not going to reset you back down to 1500, any of that nonsense. So you're basically hopefully going to be able to grind back up faster than you were beforehand. And also you should be able to maintain better matchmaking, because it should be matching you against other similarly skilled people, because it didn't mess up all of the MMRs for a split every 2 months, which is nice. I think on the whole, it's a good change. It can introduce some very, very specific issues that I'm not super worried about, because they'll resolve themselves over time. It's not really worth getting into. They're returning classic domination. Who cares? Domination sucks. All right, into the actual balance changes of the week. There's not that many item changes. In fact, there's only 3. Erendite getting a 10 physical power buff. That's actually decent for Erentite. 75 power is basically the most that items give in Smite, like Bloodforge. So there's really not other items that give more. I'm sure like Transcendence does when it's fully stacked and whatnot. But it actually makes it a solid just power item regardless of anything else that it gives. So I expect to see some more people start to pick it up just for pure power, if nothing else. Staff of Mirrodin got buffed, but I don't think this addresses the actual issue with Staff of Mirrodin. So they gave it 20 more power, which is cool. But the problem with Staff of Mirrodin is still that it doesn't really have a home. Mages don't really want to use it for the most part because it makes your next ability after your ultimate do 70% damage, and then the one after that does 100%, instead of doing it 100 and then 70 on the bonus cast. Which means it's kind of weird for mages. So what you really want to pick it up on is like Guardians who want to utilize a double CC, like a double Ymir freeze. But then you're buying a full power item on a Guardian, which you presumably were playing in some sort of more defensive role. So you can maybe get away with it in like the solo lane. But if you're in the solo lane, you're already playing Warriors because Warriors are just better. So it just doesn't really have a home right now. But eventually, in a different meta, Staff of Mirrodin will probably be good. And finally, the only other change on items is just E-Staff getting nerfed. 100 gold cost increase. I gotta admit, it tilts me a little bit that we're nerfing like the one really good hybrid mage item and we still haven't like touched most of the physical hybrid items, even though physical hybrid builds have been strong for like all season, says my watch. So it's a little upsetting that Ethereal Staff, like they finally was a good magic item. It's still gonna be good and fine. It's just like, it's more the thought than anything. Like, oh, hey, there's a hybrid magic item out of control. Let's deal with it. Meanwhile, we're sitting here like Void Shield, and we're like, there's 6 Void Shields in my game. Somebody nerf it. But what are you gonna do? All right, the actual big change of the patch, really the only big change of the patch, is Freya is getting her old kit back. So she's getting all the way reverted back to February of 2017. So she is going back a hot minute. She is traveling through time in order to bring back her old kit. For those that don't remember, that basically means that you have your 1 is bonus damage, basically your basic attacks to bonus magic damage. Your 2 is kind of like it is now, except for it's not a toggle, it's a limited time duration that your attacks become ranged. So that's changing back. Her banish is still just banish, and Valkyrie's discretion, while it's still the same ability, I believe it actually does more damage than it does now. I think her old ultimate used to do more damage. So this should be slightly more damage than it is now. And that's like the big change of the patch. I'm going to be honest off the top of my head. I don't remember in February of 2017 whether Freya was in a broken state or a garbage state. She's basically always one of the two. So I'd be careful when the patch goes live. Freya might be busted strong or still busted bad. I don't remember 2.5 years ago at that point how strong she was. So we'll see how it goes. With Freya, but definitely keep an eye on her, particularly as like the rings got changed so much with not having movement speed but doing more damage. She'll be very interesting to see. All of a sudden she might pop up in every game, or she still might not be seen. I have no idea because I just genuinely don't remember how strong she was back in the day. Into some other changes, we got a nerf for Amaterasu. Presumably you have seen her in every single one of your Smite games, whether she's a solo laner or a support or a jungler. I'm sure you have seen her absolutely all the time. And luckily she's getting nerfed. They're nerfing the movement speed on her 1 from 5 to 25% to 5 to 21%. 21% movement speed is still a disgusting amount of movement speed, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Still extremely strong. In early game, it basically wasn't touched at all. So don't worry about that. The bigger change to her is her ultimate getting nerfed. Her power is going down from 95 to 275 to 80 to 260, so 15 damage at each rank, but you do have to factor in that it goes off 3 times. So a bit more damage scaling taken off on that. Still going to be super strong. Still a decent ban. Still a great pick. But just a little bit toned down, but not going to be taken out of her super strong meta spot at all. Cerberus, getting a little bit of a buff. I think Cerberus might have one of the worst win rates in Smite right now, if not the worst. He kind of hovers around that bottom area. So he's getting a little buff to his passive. Instead of 40% stealing of heals, it's now going to be 50%, so that's fine. And then the protection shred on your 2 is going to be increasing from 6 to 14 to 5 to 18. So it's actually taken down 1 at level 1, which is kind of a strange thing, but then brought up fairly significantly at the end. You have to keep in mind this also stacks multiple times as well. So an increase of 4 at the end. I think it stacks 3 times, which means it's actually an increase of 12 is pretty significant. But I don't know if it matters if he gets that much better while magical hybrid items are kind of in a bad spot. So I think the idea of buffing Cerberus is good, but I think a little bit more of the problem is like invade meta, Guardians not being strong enough at level 1, their items not being quite as strong. So I don't think it's going to help him get back into the meta at all. Discordia getting a buff. You may have forgotten that Discordia was in the game. I certainly did. I haven't seen her in months at this point. So she's getting a little bit of love. Increased base damage on her 1 from 70 to 250 to 75 to 275. So 5 at every single rank going all the way up, which is nice. So you get 25 bonus damage at the end. I don't know how much it's going to help her clear, but like if an extra 10 damage at level 2 helps you clear the wave faster, that could be a big deal. I just don't know exactly how it's going to affect her wave clear, but that could end up meaning nothing or quite a bit depending on how much it helps you with your lane clear. And then decreasing the cooldown on her getaway skill, erratic behavior, from 18 to 16 seconds. It's a pretty bad getaway skill, so I think reducing the cooldown on it is good. It's only basically good at being an immunity frame. As far as like running away, it does nothing. But as an immunity frame, it's very strong. So having your immunity frame up a little bit more often is quite nice for her to use. It's also a fairly good aggressive ability. It's not a very good like runaway ability. Ganesh getting a slight bug fix, which is kind of technically a buff, which is that his rank 2 cast of Dharmic Pillars was costing 5 more mana than it should have. So congratulations, Ganesh players. It costs 5 less mana now. And then they fixed a bug where basically if you were trying to aim his ulti and you flicked your wrist really fast, it would kind of cast it in the wrong spot. So nothing really changed there. Ice is getting a good, decent set of nerfs. Spirit Ball increased the cooldown from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. So making sure that you can't spam that quite as often. Also, Isis has 10% cooldown built into her kit, so you could get like that down really low really fast. So that's a good nerf. Decrease the base shield on her Dispel Magic from 70 to 230 to 50 to 230. That I don't actually think matters that much. Dispel Magic really became strong at the end of the game, and at the end of the game, it still does the exact same thing, so I don't really see that as a nerf. And then Circle Protection decreased the base healing from 110 to 190 to 90 to 190. Once again, base healing I don't think is that important at the start of the game. I think that kind of stuff is more important at the end of the game, and it didn't change at all. So I don't see Isis dropping down from her number 1 mage spot in the game. The only significant nerf here is that Spirit Ball cooldown going up 2 seconds, particularly for the early game aggression, I think will make a fairly big deal. But those 2 changes, I don't really see them mattering that much for her. Still expect her to be the best. Susanoo getting a pretty nice little slap on the wrist. Decrease the scaling per hit on Storm Kata. by 5%, which means 15% total because it goes 3 times. And reduce the scaling on Typhoon, his ultimate, by 15%. I did not know this, but his ultimate scaled at 140%, which is kind of crazy. So now it's 125%. Nice step in the right direction for Susanoo. He gets picked and banned a lot at high levels. Still going to be very strong, though. Don't expect his pick ban to drop off too hard from this. Your Susanoo mains out there, you're going to be fine, but just a little bit more effort on your part going to be required, but certainly not enough to give him like a tier change or anything. He's still right where he was. Sylvanas getting a couple little changes. The biggest change here is that Verdant Growth, your root, can now be cast over walls, which is interesting and has the implication now that instead of just trying to use your 3 to pull through a wall, you could root somebody over a wall and then pull them through that wall, which is pretty nice. So that's more of a quality of life change for Sylvanas. They also fixed a bug where you could basically do the same thing as Ganesh, where you could throw out your pull really fast on Sylvanas and then whip to the side, and then your pull would still go out this way even though you were looking this way. So just like a little fix there. Overall, that's a very convenient change for Sylvanas, but I'd be surprised if that really affected his strength at all. Thor getting nerfed in what I believe is the least important or least impactful nerf of the patch, which is they're decreasing the landing damage of his ultimate from 120 to 300 to 100 to 300, so the exact same at the end of the game, and a bit of a damage nerf earlier in the game, and it kind of just goes back to normal as it goes later. They also fixed a tooltip with Thor, which said he was doing more damage than he was. It just was a wrong tooltip. I think his ultimate said it was doing 350. It was actually doing 300. And then they decreased the landing damage on the initial target from 20 to 60 to 15 to 55. Once again, I don't think that's big of a deal. I don't think anybody's been dying to lightning. You died to the hammer and the quick spin after he lands. I see this having absolutely zero impact on the strength of Thor. I think he's going to have 100% pick ban ratio still. I see no reason why this would change Thor in any way at all. So, nothing there. Tyr getting a little bit of a nerf, which is nice. They're reducing the healing on his defensive power cleave from 30 to 130 to 20 to 120. This will be a nice change early. Late game, it's not going to be that big of a deal. 10 in the late game, is not really relevant. But 10 in the early game is, because you have to keep in mind this stacks up to 3 times. So that's actually a pretty significant nerf to his heal at like level 1. Level 2, it starts to come back a little bit. It starts to become less significant as the game goes on. But in the ultra early game, it's actually a pretty nice nerf to his heal. Tyr's not getting banned in any of my games right now, but he does get picked pretty often as a solo support and jungle. I don't think this is going to affect his pick rate at all, but it maybe will make sure that people aren't banning him. He doesn't get picked enough right now for people to ban him in the first place. They're focused on banning out like Set and Thor and stuff. So I don't think this is going to affect his pick ban rate too much, but it will just slightly affect his early game. And that's the entire patch, guys. Fairly small patch in terms of gameplay changes. I really don't see anything drastically affecting the meta except for the Freya change. The Freya change could super drastically affect how good she is, but that's just going to come with practice. In exactly how good she was in February of 2017 and how good these numbers are going to match up. So she might end up being super good, or she might end up kind of being bad like she is now, but just in a different way. But she definitely has like the widest array of me just being kind of like, I don't really know how it's going to turn out. Just got to get hands-on with her in a game. First, if I had to predict, I would say she ends up on the strong side, not the weak side, but that also might just be like my old memories of getting pounded by Freya, clogging and, smoking up my brain. But that's it for the patch, guys. Nothing was done to affect snowball meta. Nothing will change the level 1 invade meta. For the most part, your picks and bans going to remain the exact same. As far as I'm aware, I don't see anything in this patch that will change the meta in any significant way. So I would expect you to basically keep playing with and against the same type of characters with the same type of strategies going into this next patch. So we'll have to wait for the next one, looking for any meta shifts.